We've got to change our relationship with conflict from it being the thing to being avoided to the thing to be leveraged. Right, so let me wrestle with the technology. So I'm going to introduce something that I use with a lot of framework teams and boards and teams, etc. And it's something called the conflict continuum. So I've got to wrestle with my glasses. So this is the conflict continuum, right? And this is how it works. So at one end of the continuum, so I can't see the screen, we've got artificial harmony, right? This is where most teams that I work with sit. And artificial harmony is where everybody really wants to be nice, everybody's nice to each other, even though they don't want to be. Okay? So there's kind of a lot of stuff under the surface that we don't really talk about. And in the great British tradition, when the client or the contractor or the supplier says, how are you doing on this project, on this framework? We'll say, fine, great. But inside, all is not well. So at one end of the spectrum, we've got this, everything's under the surface, artificial harmony. At the other end of the continuum, we've got this really mean, awful kind of atmosphere where everybody's at each other's throats. Most teams, as I say, sit at the artificial harmony, and you can test this out in a minute, by the way. And the reason they sit at artificial harmony is they think that every time they move along the line towards this ideal conflict point, it's one step closer to hell, which is the other end. Right? So they don't really want to bump into, let me bring these two up. So they're just a little bit afraid that if we have this very difficult conversation, which is at this ideal conflict point, they might cross over, right? And you'll see this all the time in your own meetings, in your own progress meetings, your own internal meetings. They're just afraid they might bump over the line into this kind of awkward, difficult, destructive conversation. And you know what? You will. The best teams in the world sometimes cross over the line. So I'd like to leave you with a marker, really, is how do you know that your team is not very good at raising, surfacing, and leveraging productive conflict, right? How you know is your meetings are boring, right? It shows up in boring meetings because everybody's kind of keeping things under the surface, being nice. So if you're having boring meetings, there's a good chance that the things that need to be talked about are not being talked about. Because disruptive meetings normally involve a bit of emotion, a bit of enthusiasm, a bit of challenge, which is not boring.